Changing of the Guard. Changing of the Guard Buckingham Palace. Changing the Guard London 2023 4K. Near Buckingham Palace, the air felt different, calmer but full of quiet excitement. People had already started gathering even though the main event was still some time away. They came from different countries, speaking different languages, but they all shared the same curiosity. They wanted to see something special, something that represented the heart of Britain. The palace stood tall and graceful, its light-colored stone glowing under the morning light. The large black gates were closed, guarded carefully, and the famous balcony looked peaceful and silent. It was hard to believe that behind these walls lived history, tradition, and royal responsibility. For many people standing there, this place was more than just a building. It was a symbol they had seen in books, movies, and on screens, and now it was right in front of them. Among the crowd was a man standing slightly to the side. He was not rushing or pushing forward. He simply observed everything with calm interest. This was his first time in London, and seeing Buckingham Palace in person felt unreal. He had watched the changing of the guard many times online, but being there felt completely different. The sounds, the space, and the people around him made the moment feel alive. Slowly, the area around the palace began to fill. Families with children, couples holding hands, solo travelers, and small tour groups all found their spots along the railings. Some people smiled as they talked, while others stood quietly, waiting. Cameras and phones were raised again and again, capturing the palace from every angle. Police officers and security staff moved gently through the crowd, guiding people and making sure everything stayed organized and safe. The man noticed how peaceful the mood was. There was excitement, but it was controlled and respectful. People understood that this was not just a show. It was a tradition with meaning. Even those who did not know every detail could feel that something important was about to happen. The air carried a sense of anticipation, as if the city itself was holding its breath. As time passed, the sounds of London continued in the background. Buses passed in the distance, footsteps echoed on the pavement, and birds flew above the palace grounds. Yet nothing distracted the crowd for long. All eyes kept returning to the gates and the open space in front of them. Everyone was waiting for the first sign that the ceremony was about to begin. The man adjusted his position slightly so he could see better. He looked around and noticed how people from different cultures stood side by side, united by curiosity. Some had visited many times before, while others were seeing it for the first time. No matter their background, they all shared the same quiet respect for the place and the moment. The palace guards on duty stood perfectly still near the gates. Their posture was straight, their expression serious, and their focus unbroken. They did not react to the cameras or the whispers around them. Their stillness itself became a powerful sight. It showed discipline and dedication, reminding everyone that this place was protected with care and responsibility. The man found himself thinking about how many times this scene had repeated over the years. Generations had stood in similar spots, watching the same ceremony. Kings and queens had changed, the world had changed, but this tradition had remained. That thought made the moment feel even more meaningful. A light breeze moved through the crowd and flags nearby shifted softly. The sun rose a little higher, lighting up the palace even more. The timing felt perfect, as if nature itself was part of the ceremony. People checked their watches, knowing the event would begin soon. Conversations became quieter and attention grew sharper. The man took a deep breath and smiled slightly. He felt lucky to be there. This was not just a tourist moment for him. It was a chance to witness living history. He knew that once the ceremony started, everything would move with precision and purpose. But right now, this calm before the action felt just as important. As the minutes passed, the crowd stood ready. Children climbed slightly higher to see, adults held their cameras steady, and the guards remained unmoving. The palace, strong and silent, watched over everyone. The stage was set, the audience was ready, and the tradition was about to unfold once again, just as it had done for countless years before. This quiet beginning marked the start of something special. It was the first step in a ceremony that connected the past to the present. And in that moment, standing outside Buckingham Palace in 2023, everyone felt they were part of something timeless, waiting patiently for history to move forward right in front of their eyes. Behind the tall walls of Buckingham Palace, the atmosphere was very different from the calm crowd outside. While visitors waited with cameras and excitement, the guards inside were fully focused on their duty. This was not a casual moment for them. It was a serious responsibility that required discipline, focus, and respect for tradition. Every movement they made had meaning, and every detail mattered. In a quiet area away from public view, the guards began their preparations. They stood in small groups, checking their uniforms carefully. Each button, each fold, and each piece of equipment had to be perfect. Their red jackets were clean and bright, and their tall black hats were carefully placed. No detail was too small to be ignored. This was not about appearance alone. It was about honoring a tradition that had been followed for many years. One guard adjusted his gloves slowly, making sure they fit properly. Another checked his shoes, polishing them one last time. Their actions were calm and practiced, showing that they had done this many times before. Even so, there was no sign of carelessness. Every guard treated this moment as important, no matter how often they had participated in the ceremony. The guards did not talk much. Silence helped them focus. When they did speak, their words were short and clear. Instructions were repeated carefully to avoid mistakes. Each guard knew his role and timing. They understood that once the ceremony began, there would be no room for error. Everything had to move smoothly and in perfect order. The training behind this moment was long and demanding. These guards were not chosen by chance. They had spent years learning discipline, patience, and teamwork. Standing still for long periods, marching in perfect rhythm, and following commands without hesitation were skills developed through hard work. The ceremony might look simple to some, but it was the result of intense preparation. As the time drew closer, the guards lined up in formation. Their posture was straight, shoulders squared, and eyes focused forward. They did not allow distractions to break their concentration. Outside, thousands of people were waiting, but inside, the guards focused only on their duty. Their calm presence reflected confidence and professionalism. Nearby, members of the marching band also prepared. Instruments were checked and adjusted. The musicians quietly tested their positions and reviewed the order of the music. The sound of a single drumbeat echoed softly, signaling that the moment was approaching. This sound was not loud, but it carried weight, reminding everyone that the ceremony was about to begin. The guards understood that they represented more than themselves. They represented service, responsibility, and national pride. Many of them thought briefly about the people watching outside, including visitors seeing this tradition for the first time. That awareness added meaning to their role, reminding them that their actions would leave a lasting impression. As final checks were completed, an officer moved along the line, observing carefully. A small nod or quiet instruction ensured that everything was ready. The guards remained still, waiting for the signal. The atmosphere was serious but steady, filled with focus rather than tension. When the signal finally came, the guards moved as one. Their first steps were slow and controlled. There was no rush, only precision. Each foot landed in perfect timing, creating a steady rhythm. Their movements showed unity, as if they were a single body rather than individuals. The march toward the palace gates felt symbolic. It marked the transition from preparation to action. The guards knew that once they stepped into public view, all eyes would be on them. Yet they did not seek attention. Their goal was to perform their duty with respect and accuracy. The sound of footsteps grew stronger as they moved forward. Inside the palace grounds, everything flowed smoothly. The guards stayed focused, keeping their spacing exact and their movements synchronized. This discipline was the result of trust and teamwork built over time. As they approached the entrance, the atmosphere changed again. The quiet preparation was now turning into a public ceremony. The guards were ready to take their place in front of the world. Their calm confidence showed that they were prepared not just for the ceremony, but for the responsibility it represented. This moment of preparation, hidden from public view, was a powerful reminder that tradition is built on effort and dedication. Before the music, before the marching, and before the cameras, there was focus, practice, and respect. And with that preparation complete, the guards stepped forward, ready to continue a tradition that connected the past with the present in the heart of London. As the guards moved closer to the palace gates, the mood outside changed quickly. The crowd sensed that the ceremony was finally beginning. Conversations stopped, and people adjusted their positions to see clearly. Cameras were raised, and children were lifted onto shoulders. There was a shared feeling of excitement, mixed with respect, as everyone prepared to witness the next stage of the tradition. The first clear sound that reached the crowd was the steady beat of drums. The rhythm was strong and confident, echoing through the wide street in front of the palace. With each beat, attention became sharper. The music was not loud or rushed. It was controlled, measured, and powerful in its own way. It guided the pace of the ceremony and set the tone for what was about to unfold. Soon after, the marching band came into view. The musicians wore formal uniforms and moved in perfect order. Their instruments reflected the sunlight as they played, adding a sense of grandeur to the scene. The music flowed smoothly, filling the air and drawing everyone deeper into the moment. Even those who had seen the ceremony before felt its impact again. Behind the band, the guards followed in precise formation. Their steps matched the rhythm of the music exactly. Each movement was sharp and intentional. They did not look left or right, and their expressions remained serious. This focus showed the discipline that defined their role. It was clear that this was not just a performance, but a duty carried out with pride. The crowd watched in silence, impressed by the level of coordination. There was no sign of hesitation or confusion. Every turn, every step, and every pause happened at the right moment. The ceremony felt almost timeless, as if it could belong to any year in history. In that moment, modern London seemed to fade into the background. One observer in the crowd noticed how the guards appeared completely connected to one another. They moved as a single unit, guided by training and trust. This unity created a powerful visual, reminding viewers that teamwork and discipline were at the heart of the ceremony. It was not about individual attention, but about shared responsibility. As the guards reached the open space in front of the palace, the music continued with steady confidence. The band adjusted its position smoothly, without breaking rhythm. The guards responded instantly, changing direction and spacing with perfect timing. The crowd could sense how carefully every detail had been planned. The palace stood quietly behind them, adding to the weight of the moment. Its presence made the ceremony feel even more meaningful. The guards were not just marching in a public area, they were performing in front of a building that represented centuries of history. This connection between place and tradition added depth to every movement. The music briefly softened, allowing the sound of footsteps to become more noticeable. The synchronized steps created a strong, steady rhythm against the ground. It was simple but powerful. Each step showed control and balance, reminding everyone of the discipline required to perform such a ceremony. People in the crowd felt a mix of emotions. Some felt inspired, others felt calm, and some felt proud even if they were visitors from far away. The ceremony had a way of connecting people, no matter where they came from. It spoke a universal language of order, respect, and tradition. As the ceremony continued, commands were given in clear, firm voices. The guards responded instantly, shifting positions and adjusting formations. There was no wasted movement. Everything flowed smoothly, showing the result of careful practice. The observer in the crowd realized that what looked effortless was actually the result of long preparation. The band played on, its music echoing through the street and nearby buildings. The sound carried far, drawing the attention of passers-by who stopped to watch. For a brief time, the ceremony became the center of the city's attention. Even the usual noise of London seemed to pause. The guards now stood fully in place, their formation strong and balanced. The music slowed slightly, signaling a transition. The crowd sensed that the most important moment was approaching. The air felt still, as if everyone was waiting together for the next step. This stage of the ceremony showed the heart of the tradition. It combined movement, music, and meaning into a single experience. The guards, the band, and the setting all worked together to create something memorable. In that moment, the ceremony was not just something to watch, but something to feel. As the music continued and the guards held their positions, the observer knew that this was a moment that would stay with him. It was a reminder that traditions can remain powerful even in a modern world. The ceremony moved forward with confidence, ready to lead into the next important phase, while the crowd remained fully engaged, watching history unfold in real time. The atmosphere grew even more serious as the ceremony moved into its most important stage. The music softened, and the steady rhythm slowed, allowing everyone to focus on what was about to happen next. The guards now stood facing each other, forming clean and balanced lines in front of the palace. One group had already completed their duty for the day, while the other was ready to take responsibility. This moment was not about movement alone, it was about trust, order, and continuity. The officer in charge stepped forward with calm authority. His voice was clear and steady as he gave short commands. Each word carried weight, and the guards responded immediately. Their movements were precise, showing that they understood their role completely. The crowd watched closely, sensing that this exchange was the heart of the entire ceremony. As the commands continued, the two groups of guards moved carefully. They adjusted their positions with perfect timing, maintaining equal distance from one another. There was no confusion or hesitation. Every step had been practiced many times, yet it still felt meaningful. This careful exchange showed how responsibility was passed from one group to the next without any break. The observer in the crowd noticed how respectful the moment felt. There was no rush, no unnecessary motion. Everything happened at a steady pace, allowing the importance of the exchange to be fully understood. It was clear that this was more than a routine change. It was a symbol of duty being continued without interruption. The guards who had completed their shift remained focused and professional. Even as they prepared to step back, their posture stayed strong. They did not relax or show any sign of relief. Their commitment lasted until the final command was given. This level of discipline impressed many in the crowd, even those who had seen the ceremony before. The new guards stood ready, their focus unbroken. For them, this moment marked the beginning of their responsibility. They accepted it with calm confidence. Their stillness showed respect for the role they were about to perform. The observer felt a quiet admiration as he watched them take their place. As the exchange continued, the music played softly in the background. It did not distract from the moment but supported it, adding a sense of balance. The sound blended with the movements, creating a smooth and respectful flow. The ceremony felt almost peaceful, despite its formal structure. The palace gate stood behind the guards, silent and strong. They served as a reminder of why this ceremony existed. The guards were not just performing for an audience, they were protecting a place of great importance. This understanding added depth to every movement and command. The crowd remained silent, showing respect for the moment. Even children seemed to sense the seriousness and stayed quiet. Cameras continued to record, but without noise or distraction. Everyone understood that this was not a time for applause or excitement, but for appreciation. The officer gave the final commands of the exchange. The responsibility had now fully shifted to the new guards. The old guards prepared to leave the formation, still moving with care and discipline. Their exit was just as organized as their arrival, showing that every part of the ceremony mattered. The observer felt a strong sense of continuity as he watched this transition. It was clear that the ceremony had been repeated many times before, yet it never lost its meaning. Each exchange represented stability and trust, values that had been passed down through generations. As the old guards stepped away, the new guards held their positions firmly. They now stood as the visible protectors of the palace. Their calm presence reassured everyone watching. It showed that the duty was in capable hands. The music slowly grew stronger again, signaling that the exchange was complete. The ceremony had reached its core and was now moving toward its final phase. The crowd felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing they had witnessed something important. This part of the ceremony reminded everyone that tradition is built on responsibility and respect. The exchange of duty was simple in action but deep in meaning. It showed how order and trust can continue without interruption, even as time moves forward. As the guards stood in their new positions, the observer felt a deep appreciation for the people behind the uniforms. Their discipline, focus, and respect brought the ceremony to life. This moment, calm and powerful, stood at the center of the tradition, connecting the past, the present, and the future in a single, meaningful exchange. As the ceremony slowly moved toward its end, the energy around Buckingham Palace began to change once again. The most formal moments were now complete, and a sense of calm satisfaction settled over the crowd. The guards stood firmly in their new positions, showing no sign of movement or distraction. Their duty had officially begun, and they carried it with quiet confidence. The music from the band grew lighter and more flowing. It no longer signaled commands or transitions, but gently marked the closing of the event. The sound traveled across the open space, touching everyone present. For many people, this music became the lasting memory of the day. It felt respectful and steady, just like the tradition itself. The guards who had completed their duty marched away in perfect order. Their steps were still sharp and controlled, even as they exited the main area. The crowd watched closely, noticing that discipline did not fade once the spotlight moved away. Every movement, from beginning to end, reflected commitment and pride. The observer in the crowd felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. He realized that the ceremony was not meant to be dramatic or emotional in a loud way. Its power came from control, order, and consistency. It showed that some things do not need to change to remain meaningful. They simply need to be respected and maintained. As the final notes of music echoed through the street, people began to relax. Some lowered their cameras, while others took a final photo of the guards standing silently at their posts. Conversations slowly returned, but voices remained soft. There was an unspoken understanding that something important had just taken place. Children asked questions, curious about what they had seen. Parents explained the ceremony in simple words, pointing toward the palace and the guards. Tour guides gathered their groups and shared brief explanations, adding context to the experience. Even those who had not fully understood every detail felt that the moment had been special. The palace itself seemed unchanged, calm and steady behind the gates. Yet for those who had watched the ceremony, it now felt more alive. The observer looked at the building differently than before. It was no longer just a famous place, but a living part of a long tradition that continued day after day. The guards remained completely still, focused on their duty. They did not react to the crowd or the movement around them. This stillness made a strong impression. It showed that their role was ongoing, even after the ceremony ended. The tradition did not stop when the music faded. It continued quietly through their presence. As people began to leave, the street slowly returned to its usual rhythm. Buses passed, footsteps echoed, and the normal sounds of London filled the air once more. Yet something had changed. Those who had witnessed the ceremony carried a sense of connection with them. They had seen history not as a story from the past, but as something active and real. The observer took one last look at the guards before turning away. He felt grateful for the experience. It was not about excitement or entertainment alone. It was about understanding the value of discipline, responsibility, and continuity. These ideas felt especially meaningful in a fast-moving world. Walking away from the palace, he noticed how people smiled as they talked about the ceremony. Some shared photos, while others simply shared impressions. Everyone had taken something different from the experience, but the feeling of respect was shared by all. The ceremony had ended, but its message remained. It showed that traditions can still hold power when they are honored with care. It reminded people that behind every uniform is a person trained to serve with focus and integrity. This understanding stayed with the observer as he blended back into the busy city. For visitors, the changing of the guard became a highlight of their journey. For locals, it remained a familiar and comforting sight. And for the guards, it was another day of duty performed with pride. Each group experienced the moment differently, yet all were connected by it. As the day moved forward, the palace continued to stand quietly, watched over by the new guards. The ceremony had passed, but its presence lingered in memory. It had connected strangers, crossed cultures, and brought people together for a brief moment of shared attention. In 2023, in the heart of London, the changing of the guard proved once again that tradition does not fade when it is respected. It lives on through careful preparation, calm execution, and dedicated people. And for everyone who witnessed it, the experience became more than just something they saw. It became something they felt, remembered, and carried with them long after they left the gates of Buckingham Palace.